What is your name?
Isabelle
Isabelle what?
Hoisington.
And who is this beside you?
That's my daughter, Joy. See you, Joy Evans.
I'm Joy Evans.
Well, we both appreciate you guys for coming down and talking with us today. And if it's okay, I'd like to ask you all some questions.
Okay.
All right. Isabelle, when and where were you born?
Where was I born?
Mm-hmm.
I was born in Asheville on Fresh Broad Avenue. They told me.
What year were you born?
1916.
Joy, when and where were you born?
I was born in Asheville as well, in what they call the old hospital, in 1938, June 25th.
Now, I know we have a lot of questions, but I don't even know if I really have to ask you all questions except for maybe prod you about some stories today. Because one of the things that we always ask a lot of the people we talk to is, what was school like for you when you were little?
School was wonderful. I couldn't wait for school to start, and I cried when school was out.
Tell them about your first day.
The first day I went to school, I got lice. So my mother kept me out that year, and she taught me at home. So the next year I went in, and so instead of going to the first grade to the second grade, I went on to the third grade. But I was older then. See, you didn't have to go till you was 7, then.
So then you graduated pretty young, didn't you?
Yeah, I graduated from high school when I was 16.
And they had 2 rooms?
Oh, there's 2 rooms at the school. Little room and the big room. The big room started in the 4th grade up, and that's where I started in the 4th grade. My little sister, she had to go to the little room.
How many students went to that school?
Oh, how many students? Oh, I don't know. To me, it looked like a crowd, but it wasn't that big.
Joy, what was school like for you?
Well, Mom and Dad moved to Michigan for work, like so many people did right about wartime. So I started in Pontiac, and they wanted me to start in kindergarten, but I was 1st grade age. Mom argued with them because we didn't have kindergarten in North Carolina at that time. But I didn't like it. I was real unhappy. We lived in the projects, and they were brand new. They were very nice. But I'd go around one row and hide until I heard the school bell, and then I'd come back home crying. And I don't know how long I did that, but I wasn't happy in school. I think it was because of the move, being in a new place.
Now, I got to ask, do you have any good school memories?
A few, I do. I joined the band, and I loved playing in the band, and that made school more interesting for me, something that I really liked to do. But I have an older sister who was very beautiful and very smart, and I felt like I could never live up to her standards, so I didn't really try too hard. So I put everything I had into playing a clarinet. That's what I liked.
Isabelle, how many children did you have?
4.
4.
2 girls, 2 boys.
What was the age range of your children?
Well, every 2.5 years, I have a baby.
That's a good explanation.
And the last one was born in Michigan.
Now that one was which one?
That was Philip, my baby brother. I felt like he was mine. I was probably 8, maybe, or 9. I think my first childhood memory was we lived in Asheville, and I would hear airplanes, quite a few airplanes it sounded like to me, but they were having blackouts in Asheville, and all the lights in the city everywhere had to be turned off. And somebody knocked on our door because they could see a light. It was coming from the fireplace, and Dad had to find something to cover the fireplace. But even to this day, if I hear more than one airplane, I perk up. I don't, it's just a reminder, but it was frightening to me. We always had to go to bed, of course. But I guess times were pretty hard for people back through the Depression and the wartime. Very tough.
I've heard that you've had some pretty interesting jobs in your life.
Oh, yes. Oh, I've had a lot of good jobs.
Can you tell me about during the war?
During the war, we moved up to, I was working before I ever went to Michigan. You have a family, you feel like you gotta, takes two working people to keep up a family. And I had 4 children. Well, I didn't have Philip yet, but had the 3 children. And
where did you work?
I don't know, whatever I have to stop.
GMC?
I worked at General Motors. When I went to Michigan, I worked at General Motors.
She was one of the original Rosie Riveters.
Yeah.
And that's probably before your time, but all the women were called Rosie Riveters. They went to work.
Yeah.
The men went to war and the women went to work.
But any job they gave me to do, I could do it. Whatever it is. It was climbing up and what do you use that for? I don't know the name of the machines, the things that I use now.
Were they like the Riveters?
The drills and things like that.
On an assembly line, no less.
Yeah, I worked on the assembly line.
During the war, were there a lot
During the war.
Were there a lot of women that worked in the factories?
Oh, yes. Well, I remember when the war, the day when the war was over, you should have seen the women that walked out. They weren't working, they just worked for the war. I didn't, I stayed with them. I had some seniors, I worked there for about 17 years.
What did the Rosie Riveters do?
Beg your pardon?
What did the Rosie Riveters do?
They riveted, they used a machine of riveting things.
They were building vehicles for the war.
Yeah, with building,
trucks and big buses and things like that.
Army trucks. Army trucks.
I would say that was very important for the war effort to have that production going in place. So you all had some pretty interesting jobs back then.
Yeah.
So you stuck with General Motors for 17 years?
17 years.
Oh. Have you had any other jobs that you enjoy?
Well, if I got laid off once in a while, I'd go over to Fisher Body. That's another pipe. It's one of the General Motors too, Fisher Body was. And I'd work there for a while. Well, I liked that job too, and I kind of wanted to stay, but my seniority was at the other place. So I don't think they ever gave me a job that I didn't learn how to do it.
Back then, they didn't have hearing protection, and it took her hearing. It really bothered her hearing. And probably all of them lost hearing.
Now, I heard a little story about hearing aids and you. Can you or Joy fill me in on the story about your hearing aids?
Can I tell this story on you?
Go ahead.
Mom couldn't hear. I was married then and living in North Carolina. But you couldn't talk to her because she couldn't hear, so she just talked. She'd talk. And my sister and I were trying to convince her to check on hearing aids, and she didn't need them. But finally, she got a little extra money somewhere, and she said she's going to go buy some hearing aids. And she went. We were just thrilled to death. Well, lo and behold, she came home wearing a mink fur. She still couldn't hear, but she looked nice in that fur.
Well, furs come first.
And you still have that fur today, is that right?
Yes.
Oh, yes, I still wear it.
You want to model your coat?
Please, please.
Model my coat?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. I'm showing off now. It's old. I've had it a long time.
Still warm,
Take
though.
care of it.
Is that worth more than hearing aids? Is that coat worth more than hearing aids?
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
How old
You
is
learn
that?
that when you get something, you learn to take care of it. It'll last for a long time.
How old is that coat?
How what?
How old is this coat?
Oh,
It's got to be 50.
10 years.
10? It's more than that, honey. It's 50 or 60 years old at least.
Oh, well, it's not that old today. I'm not that old.
I understand.
That's right.
Well, that is a beautiful coat that's only a couple years old. It's done very well.
Yeah,
is
but
beautiful.
I like my coat.
Isabelle, can you tell me a little bit about when you were young and how you grew up?
We lived in the country. I had, there were 6 of us kids. And we didn't have a whole lot of anything, but we loved each other. We had a lot of love in our family. We didn't feel poor, but after you get grown up, you realize that you grew up kind of poor. Maybe whenever you just have one dress, you get it all ironed and washed and fixed up on the weekend. You start the week new, all clean. But we weren't the only ones. There's a lot of people. It was during Depression times, and it was hard to get money. And I don't know, I never felt poor. I felt like we were pretty kind of well-to-do,
We lived in the projects, which would be considered poor people, but I thought we were rich. I had no idea. So tell them about when you took your siblings up on top of the mountain. Watch for the stars.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, there was kind of thing, you know how they do have something's happened in the heavens, with the stars. So we had past the hill, and it was only about a mile up to the top of the mountain. So I took my little kids, my little sisters and brothers, and I carried my little 6-year-old because he couldn't climb the hills too well. That time we went up there and spread out, and we got kind of sleepy. We went to sleep. We woke up and both the stars were just going everywhere. So we really had a good time with that. That was a good time of my life. And my mother let us go. But if she could call us. And we could hear, up on the mountain like that. We could hear where she needed us. So,
Was you afraid of bears?
oh no, we weren't afraid of anything. Snakes.
Maybe a snake. Tell about babysitting your kids and the horse.
The one.
When you were babysitting your siblings and the horse came down the steps?
Oh yeah, my mother, I was the oldest kid, and so I got left at home to kind of watch after the others because mother had to be out for a little while. So all of a sudden, I don't know, people think that it was my imagination, but it wasn't. But horses came out of an upstairs room, down the steps, through the hall, and out the door. Well, I was petrified, you know, a horse. So I gathered the kids up and took them to the neighbors. We stayed there, and Mother came home. I said, well, Mother, those horses that came out of that. There was a room upstairs we rented, and the door was locked to that room. And I suppose, you know, you get kind of funny feelings about a room that's locked all the time, but they had their furniture and the people that owned that home. But I was just sure that horses, I can see those horses now coming down those steps.
Did your siblings see the horses?
No.
Just you.
Well, I was the oldest. I was about 10.
Now, Joy, you said you had a similar story with a horse?
Well, I was just thinking about it, that I take after my mom more than I realized, but we were playing softball out in the street between the rows of houses, and the ball went between two houses up in a dark place, and I went chasing after the ball, and all of a sudden I saw a big lion up there, and I screamed bloody murder. Of course, everybody came running, and I heard somebody say it was probably a dog, but in reality I don't think there was anything up there, just my imagination. So I got that after her. No doubt.
Now, I heard that you did something very special when you were 75 years old, that you built a garage.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
We had a post hole digger, and I dug holes. That was so far. And I sawed up some logs to put in for. I thought you had to have something, you know, to put the boards up against. And I worked in. I made a garage.
At age 75.
It was big enough to put a car in.
Yeah, it was a big one. If I made up my mind I wanted to do something, I could do it. And when I worked in the factory, they never gave me a job I couldn't do. I was going to do it. And I just did the best I could with everything. I have a good record.
She's always had an upbeat personality, always. When we were kids and older, and still yet. She's just a joy to be around because she keeps us laughing still. But she always told us never to say a word about anybody unless it was something good. Said if you don't have anything good to say, keep your mouth shut.
I think you might have a few politicians to talk to about that one. Yeah. Now,
That's still good advice.
It is.
yeah, you all seem to have some pretty interesting stories. Are there any other stories that we don't know about, or that Teresa may know, or someone else here might know that we don't know?
Tell them about your little sister, afraid of getting her finger cut off.
Oh, I had a little sister that sucked her thumb. Sucked her finger. You know how parents try to get them to quit. I can't imagine my mother saying that was going to cut her finger off, you know, if it was the idea that she's going to get that finger cut off. And then, so there came a time when some strangers came to the house. I thought they'd come to cut Geneva's finger off. So I took Geneva, went up the road, and there's a big hole in the bank. So we crawled in that bank back on the highway on our house. And it was all hugged over there. And the postman came by, and he had a horse and buggy. And he looked, and he said, "What are you doing then?" Well, I said, they're going to cut Geneva's finger off. So we're hiding until they go away from the house. And so he talked to us. He said, I don't think they're going to cut your finger off. I don't know how long we stayed there. We stayed a little while up in back in that hole in the bank. Finally, I took her to the house. So she never did get her finger cut off. I was the oldest kid, so I was kind of bossy. And when Mother would go away from home, I was going to change all the kids. It was going to be nice. Mother wouldn't even know us because we'd be so nice. But the kids wouldn't cooperate. It had me in tears. I was bossy. But I was the oldest. I had a right to be the boss.
I had it written down here that you were both kind of, when your mom was absent, you were kind of the mother and the teacher to your brothers and sisters.
Mm-hmm.
How many kids were in your mom's family?
In my family, there were 6 of us.
6 of you.
Mm-hmm.
How many boys and how many girls?
There was 4 girls and 2 boys.
And you used to take care of all those kids yourself? Of the other 5?
Mm-hmm. What?
Did you take care of all the other children?
Oh, I looked after them whenever I lost them. I tried. They didn't particularly like it. But I wanted to change them and make Mother just realize what a nice family she had. So I was in tears most of the time trying to make them do right. I don't know why I was so bossy. I thought I knew everything.
These are some really good stories we've gotten so far. One thing that we always like to ask people is is the world different today than when you were a child? Or how is it different today than when you were a child?
Oh, I think it's way different. Of course, I've grown up a whole lot since then. I can see that. I suppose the kids today would probably have the same feelings that I did. There's school, and you have to go certain times to do this and certain times to do that, and you have to behave, and you don't repeat things that happened at home. That was a good way to remember. Kids will tell everything, if they get a chance, but we were just taught not to tell things that happened at home. So we didn't.
She went to Weaver College in Weaverville. And were you studying to be a nurse, weren't you?
Oh, no, I was wanting to be a nurse. And I sent off applications and everything. And they accepted me. But we didn't have money for me to go and be a nurse. You have to have money to go away from home and stay.
She had a little problem as well. Every time she saw blood, she fainted. And every time anybody got sick, she got sick too. So I don't think that was her calling.
I don't think I would have made a good nurse.
We lived in a pretty big house in Michigan after we'd left the projects, and most of us had left home, so Mom and Dad rented out apartments upstairs. And there was a lady there, and I went to visit, and she was pregnant and apparently having a miscarriage. And Mom was taking care of her, called the ambulance. Her husband was panicking, running up and down the steps. Mom would say, go call, he'd run back, and I was there, and they had another child, about 3, and she was screaming, so I was trying to take care of her. She didn't know me. She was frightened, and there was a stack of romance magazines, and I gave her one, and that did it. She was happy. Mom was really busy. The ambulance came, and they couldn't carry the lady down the steps. Mama told them to put her in a chair, carry the chair. They did, and they thanked Mom. Everybody left, gone to the hospital. Mom passed out. But she got through it all.
I got that woman there.
I want to tell, when I was born, diphtheria must have been a pretty bad thing going around at that time. And Mom and Dad were said to be carriers, and my older sister, she was about 3, and they quarantined them. And since I was a new baby, they took me away, but the neighborhood took care of me. My granny would keep me 2 or 3 weeks, and my other granny 2 or 3 weeks, and then a neighbor and an aunt, and I was passed all around that neighborhood for about 6 months. And Mom said that her dad brought me so she could see me at Christmas, but I was wrapped up, and Mom thought I was deformed because my head was so big. But I was 6 months older when she'd see me. So must have been
6 months old.
Must have been hard times, but they quarantined people back then to guard against diphtheria. So
it's really interesting how the whole community kind of came together to take care of you.
Because taking a new baby in, and especially if you're older, it'd be kind of hard. But they'd keep me a couple of weeks, 3, and somebody else would. I know we visited after, I was probably 8 or 9 years old. We were visiting back in North Carolina, and we went into an old church where I was with my 2 cousins, and a man in front stood up and said, "Is that Joey Ballard?" And he ran and grabbed me and carried me, embarrassed me to death. I didn't know who he was, but they had taken care of me when I was little. So, and my cousins thought that's pretty funny. Tell about when I started walking.
You started walking.
I wouldn't walk. Had to be carried everywhere.
It was hot summertime, and I didn't put shoes on. So she's about 18 months old, and she hadn't taken a step. But it came fall, and I put shoes on it, so she just let her off.
That's what we were waiting for
But
shoes.
she didn't want her feet to touch the ground. There's a lot of stories about bringing up kids.
Well, we really appreciate you sharing your stories today with us.
Mm-hmm.
We really appreciate you sharing your stories today with us.
Well, thank you.
How many kids do you have, Joy?
I have 3 boys. They were quite interesting to bring up too. I married young and left home and came back to North Carolina. And of course I was raised in the city, and when I moved here to Marion, my in-laws had a little mini farm, and it was like heaven to me. Cows, pigs, horses, farming, I wanted to do it all. And thought it was strange, but she ordered some chickens in the mail. They delivered them in a box, little chicks. And it was early spring, and she kept them in the house by the stove until it got warm enough. And so I started petting them. I'd never been around little chickens that I could remember. And I named them all, and I had them all petted. They were rotten. And when they got big enough to go onto a roost, one of them had short legs and couldn't make it, so I'd go every night and lift him and put him on that roost. And I was a married woman, you know, but it was just so different from city life, so quiet that it frightened me at first. And it took a while to get used to, but it was really it's a good kind of living. My mother-in-law asked me once if I would go up to the apple tree and get her some potatoes, and I said, sure. And she gave me a bucket and a fork. And I thought, what'd she give me the fork for? But anyway, I went up there and I looked and looked and looked. I couldn't find any potatoes. And I came back and I said, there aren't any potatoes up there. And she said, honey, you have to dig them out of the ground. I said, oh, I didn't know that. So I did. I learned a lot about it. And that's a good way to live. And of course, Mom grew up knowing all that stuff. Mom came to visit one time, and my mother-in-law was, everybody called her Granny, the whole community, everybody. She was known as Granny. And she told Mom, we were sitting down at the table to eat, and she said, talking about me, said, she didn't know a thing when she came here.
She learned quick though.
But Mom was very nice. She didn't say anything.
So y'all enjoyed living in McDowell County?
I love it. I've been here over 50 years now. And Mom, you've lived in McDowell County 5 or 6 years now, haven't you? And she loves it too. We've always loved the mountains.
Joy, can you talk about your work in your life, jobs you've had?
Well, the first job I had was with the American Thread. And I worked there about 9 years in the shipping department. And I liked that pretty well. But business was so good, they were moving the department I worked, splitting it into two. And so we were all laid off. And then I just worked here and there, but I was having kind of a hard time, and I ended up working 3 jobs. And I did that for about 7 years. I worked at Marion Motors. I liked that until Charles Lovelace passed away, and lost my job there, and I went to Lattimore Chrysler Plymouth. And but I ended up, I worked at the piano factory too. I don't know where all I worked everywhere and worked about all the time. And I was raising up my 3 boys. They were all young teenagers during that time. But I ended up at Columbia, Carolina. I was the second female they hired in office. And I started buying logs, paying for logs, and I stayed there and retired there. Took an early retirement, and I really enjoyed my retirement. And especially since Mom's come to live with us. I told her one time we didn't know how to laugh until she came, and she said, now wait a minute. But she's so full of fun. And we sit and talk about the old stories over and over. And they're still just as much fun. I worked as one of my second jobs at the River Breeze Fish Camp, which many people remember. I would go to work there directly from my office job. And my boys would come home from school and they would hitchhike out there, which was really nothing because it was their friends. It was always people they knew, but we lived in town, and they just walk up Main Street, somebody pick them up, and they'd go to the skating rink, and when it closed, they'd come on over to the River Breeze where I was, and I'd give them hush puppies and French fries, and we'd come home. And we did that for quite a while, and I just, either I was naive or I just had extra good boys, but I remember one time especially, Mom came to visit, didn't have a telephone at that time, couldn't afford it, and she said, she just came and she was there before I got home from work, and she said, Rick came running in and sat down and said, phew, I made it. They had a curfew, and I wasn't even at home, but he ran from down Main Street to make his curfew that time. I thought that was pretty interesting. Not that they didn't get into some things, but we won't go into that. My boys were pretty good boys. They were normal. It was during the hippie year. My oldest one was called Hippie, and the second one was called Little Hippie. I don't know why. That's what their friends call them. I don't know why. They weren't hippies by any means. I was coming down Main Street one time, and we saw this person way up ahead, sitting way up high above the cars, and thought, who is that? What in the world? We caught up with him. It was my son, and he was on a home-built bicycle. I said, what are you doing on that thing? How are you going to get off of that? And I was in the car, but it scared me to death. But he had got the idea to build a real tall bicycle. And he had $3 in his pocket. He said he went down to Marion Machine and asked those people what it would cost to weld a piece that he needed welded on. And they said, oh, about $4. And he said, well, the guy up the street said he could do it for $3. And he said, well, we'll do it for $3. And so he did it. Mike said, that's all I had was $3. So he made up that story. But he rode that bicycle around and then sold it to somebody. So it was a big hit around town.
I know your son very, very well.
Mike, my son, my middle son, Mike.
Friend.
He's the one that, he now is public works director. So I guess he started off right, building bicycles.
Your son is a good man. He's been great to us here. He helps us in a lot of
stuff. He takes after
projects.
his mama too, because we moved out from the country and they weren't happy moving down in town. And he brought a pet chicken with him, and of course there was a barn there, so we just put her in the barn, and he and the neighbor kids, my 3 boys and the neighbor kids, formed a collectors club. And they cleaned the barn up, and they collected things and put around. Then they invited their parents to come and charge us a dime to get in. And they had signs up. This is a rock, and this is a soda bottle. This is just junky things. And then the hen was sitting there in the corner and said, watch out for the chicken. She'll pick your eyes out. And they had a plank put up for us to sit on, and they presented what they had been doing, and they'd been saving their money, and they wanted to donate it to, the bank was collecting money trying to attract a factory of some kind at that time. And they went and donated it, got their picture put in the paper. It was $3.81 that they had collected and turned in to help get industry in the county. So they were quite busy little rascals. But they missed their granddad out in the country, so they decided to write him a letter. And they wrote on the envelope, to Granddaddy. And they put a S&H green stamp on it and put it in the mailbox. They delivered it. They knew we had just moved there, the mailman, and he knew exactly who it was, and they delivered that. And their granddaddy, that just made his day. But Mom took care of me for however many years, and I'm taking care of her now. But I'm sure her job was a lot harder than mine. And she teases me about it once in a while, because I help her do and remind her of things and help her do things, and she teases me.
I don't want to do that.
But sometimes it's easy to try to do everything for somebody you love, and it's not a good idea. People need to learn how to do for themselves and keep on doing as long as they can. I've learned that.
I just want to thank both of you for coming in today and sharing your stories. These are great stories today that people are going to enjoy to listen to. Thank you for both of your times coming today.
You're welcome.